All right. Well, thank you again for joining us this morning for our Closing the Loop workshop. Today, we're going to focus on how to report your results for the 21-22 IE planning cycle. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I guess first we should tell y'all who we are, even though I'm assuming you might know us. But my name is Allie Michael. I'm the Assistant Director for IEA. Amanda?
And I'm Amanda Wormhoff. I am the Director of IEA.
And together we help with IE planning. So Amanda usually covers the IE planning process for degree and certificate programs. And then I help units that are what we call non-degree units, which all of you are part of. So you can always contact either one of us for support, but I'm more of the main contact for those non-degree units. So let me share my screen here. We have a little PowerPoint that will show you. There we go. Can everyone see that? All right. So to get started, we are talking about submitting your results report for this current cycle that we're in right now. So all of you should have submitted outcomes back in the fall, I think is when we did that, right? Ish, summer, fall-ish. So your outcomes that you were going to be measuring for this year, that was what we would call your IE plan for this year. And so if you look at this continuous improvement cycle, which is what we kind of follow with this IE planning process, we've articulated the outcomes and planned the assessments. That's what we did in our IE planning process. Then this year you've been performing the assessments, collecting the data. So as you've moved through that IE plan and implemented it, that's ideally what you've been doing this semester or over the course of this year. Sometimes, depending on the nature of your outcome, you may be collecting that data at the end of the academic year. It's different for every unit. But then when we get over to this part, this is where we are in this process. We're closing the loop. So we're taking all of that assessment data that we've worked on and tying that back to the outcomes, analyzing those results and reflecting on them to identify improvements. So that's kind of where we are in our process currently as we're talking through it today. So why we report on these results, this is not just something that you're out there putting into a report and throwing out into cyberspace. This is something that, for one thing, it is required by our SAC-COC accreditation, but also we just want to do this because it makes us better. It makes us a stronger institution. It helps our units to be better and to provide our students with the best of what we can give them. So we use our results from these assessments to help us identify not only our strengths, those areas that we can maximize, but also some areas that we may see some improvement opportunities for. It helps us to demonstrate that commitment to continuous improvement, which we have to show to SAC-COC that we're doing that, but also helping us to demonstrate to our students and to our constituents that we're doing that. It also helps us as we work through this report to really think about what it is that we're doing in our units. Are the things that we're doing every day tying back to those outcomes that we have? Are we truly doing what we say we're going to do throughout the academic year? So that helps us to make those connections that sometimes if you don't put it on paper, it's hard to kind of see how those things line up. Kind of gives us a purpose for what we're doing. And also it shows us, it gives us that evidence-based support. It gives us that data to back things up to help us related to our either student learning. Some of you may have student learning outcomes or your administrative effectiveness with those administrative unit outcomes. So that's kind of the purpose behind why we do it. So yes, we do it because we have to for accreditation purposes, but more so we should be doing it because it makes us stronger. So let's talk about the components of the results report, and then we'll actually get into the process of getting that results report completed and submitted. So first of all, you will be asked, was the target met, partially met, or not met? Now, you set your target yourself. That's why when we gave you feedback on your plans back, whenever that was, when we provided that feedback, that was one of the things that we were trying to help you all with, to make sure that the target was something that would be a challenge for your unit, but wouldn't be an insurmountable challenge, right? That's why we usually discourage people from saying 100% met, because oftentimes that's not feasible. But you did set that target yourself, or your assessment coordinator did. And we want to emphasize, it is okay if you didn't fully meet that target. That's fine. Don't feel like you have to twist your data around to show that it was met. This isn't like a performance evaluation where there's going to be some sort of punitive action taken if you didn't meet that target. This is more for you. Even if you didn't meet it, just say, hey, we didn't meet it, and this is why. You'll have an opportunity to explain that later. So it's not only about showing whether or not it was met, but also reflecting on why that may have been the case. So even if you met your target, you're still expected to provide a description of those results and to conduct that reflective analysis. So even if everything was hunky-dory, as my grandma would say, you still have to provide those description and then that reflective analysis. And then you want to talk about some possible actions for a target that was met. So that may be things like reassessing it next year to make sure that those were some consistent results. Was this year just kind of a really great year? So see if you'll get those consistent results in the future. You may also want to identify a new measure or an additional measure. Maybe something came up, even if it was met, you may say, oh, well, there's something else that I think we could look at with this as well. So you could add an additional measure to that. You could revise that target. So maybe you met it and you exceeded that target. Maybe you said 70% of our students are going to do this, and you ended up with 80%. So maybe you want to revise that target for the next cycle and say, okay, well, we're going to shoot for 85% this cycle. Things like that. And then also you may want to revise that outcome to be more specific or more rigorous. So maybe you met it and you thought, oh, well, that wasn't too hard for us to meet. So let's make it a little more complex this time. Let's make it a little bit more, let's focus on one specific aspect of it, or maybe up the ante a little bit for that to challenge us a bit more. So you will need to provide a summary of your results. So we ask you just for a few sentences about how those results did or did not meet the target. So we provided an example here from our office that we created a communication plan to contact all units at least once a month. This was marked as partially met because even though we were in contact with units throughout the academic year, all units weren't contacted every month. So that's an example of something that was partially met. So we said we were going to communicate every month. We communicated a lot, but we didn't specifically meet what we said in that outcome. Some of y'all might be like, you communicated too much. So, but that's an example of how you can reflect on that to show that summary. All right, Amanda, you want to take it away now?
Yes. So in this part of the results report is really where you're making meaning out of your results. So the met or not met, the summary, that's just kind of the what. The reflective analysis is the why. Why do we think this is the result that we got? What does it mean in the context of our unit? It's truly a reflective place for you as a unit, or even if you're a unit of one, just to think on your own about, why did we get these results? What do they mean? And it really helps provide context for the results that you got. So whether you met, partially met, did not meet, this is a place where you can say, this is why we think that happened, or here's what happened this semester that helped us meet it, or why we did partially met it. And it's really a narrative. So usually we say the analysis is a paragraph or two. It just kind of depends. Some folks generate the narrative from a more formal context. So maybe you have a unit meeting or a staff meeting and you talk about it and someone takes notes. That kind of stuff counts as reflective analysis. Or, if it's just you or you and a colleague and you want to jot down some thoughts, that can serve as your reflective analysis. So you're really thinking about, why did we receive these results? what's notable about them, like what stands out to you about the results, and what might they mean for improvement or other actions that you might take. One thing that we didn't put here that I would also mention is you want to break down whatever it is you're measuring into component parts. So for instance, if Allie and I had an administrative goal that we wanted our feedback survey from a professional development activity for 80% of people to say they were very satisfied, and say we didn't meet that, or say we did, we want to break down why we think we got that result. And that comes in the analysis. So it might be that in the analysis, we look at the narrative comments people put on the survey, or we reflect on what we included in the presentation and what we left out, and what might have contributed to that result. So you kind of have to work backwards and think about what were the steps or the parts that we took to get to this place, and where along that chain might there be an area that we did really well or an area that needs improvement. And you can look beyond. What's important about the reflective analysis is you can look beyond the results themselves. So you can bring in other pieces of information here that help make sense of the result that you got. Because obviously these results don't happen in a vacuum, right? There's a lot of other things going on, a lot of factors, a lot of other data you might be collecting. This is a good place to kind of bring that in. And really the analysis part in terms of the report, if someone's reading your report, the analysis is the bridge between the result that you got and the action you plan to take or not. That's kind of where you make those connections in a narrative sense. So the last, and some might say most important part, this is really where you close the loop. This is where you decide what actions you're going to take based on these results, and you document that. This is always the hardest part, frankly, because you have to think about what is feasible, what is realistic. So we might have things we want to do. We want to hire 10 more people to help us, right? Well, that's not going to happen. So what can we do to make this better? And Allie and I are here to kind of talk through that with you. Sometimes you just need someone outside the office to kind of chat through what those actions might be. Sometimes it might be super obvious. It might be, oh, our feedback was that we needed to give more information on X, so people were confused about this. Okay, well then we'll just include more of that and see what happens the next time. But other times it's a little harder to pick out. Ideally, the actions that you identify as a unit, no matter how large or small your unit is something that is collectively decided. Now, we can't always have consensus on everything, but if you can get to a place where you as a group feel good about the steps you're going to take next, and if needed, get that approved by a unit head or a chair, that's really what you're looking for, is what are the steps we're going to take next based on this information that we have collected. So in this report, if you've done results reports before, if this is a process you've already participated in, we were very basic. We just had a little box where we were like, just say the action. We're going to ask you for more information about that now. We find that that is helpful on our end for documenting what types of things people are doing and when they're going to implement them, but also it just helps you think about, okay, what are the actual steps to getting this action done? So we're going to ask you about what type of action. There'll be a drop down there, right, Allie, that they'll answer, select what type of action. Then you'll just describe it briefly, and you'll say when you hope to implement it. That doesn't have to be a specific date. I mean, it could just be fall 23 or whatever you decide you want to say there. Someone who's responsible for implementing that, or even if it's the whole team, you can say, everyone in our office is responsible for implementing this, but we just want you to think about who's actually involved in implementing this. And then importantly, when that outcome will be reassessed. So the point of the action isn't just to do something again in a vacuum. You're trying to take an action to improve the outcome, improve the achievement of that outcome, or build on a strength if it's a met outcome. So what you want to do is reassess at some point that outcome that you measured to see if the improvements that you made have made any difference in your results. Now, obviously, this is not a straight line, right? It's not a causation situation, but it does help you understand how actions that you take might be impacting your results. So if you really can't take any actions, or there's reasons that you can't, there are some very extenuating circumstances in some units where that might not be possible for different reasons, or you don't want to for different reasons. You can mark that, but we ask that you explain it. And if there's any issues with that, Ellie and I will reach out to you to talk through it. But in the past, we were kind of like really hardcore making everybody choose an action, but there are some situations in which you might want to take a pause and assess again, which in itself is really an action, but it might be hard to identify something specific, or maybe your unit was totally reorganized, or, I mean, there might be all different reasons that this might need to be put on pause, but we just need to keep track of that for our own record keeping purposes. So this is sort of a little screenshot of the new form. Allie's going to talk about it in a little more detail, but this is just what I described looks like in the form. So you're selecting from type of action the drop down. This is an example from our own office. It's made up. We haven't looked at our results yet. Describe it. We say when we're going to implement it. We say who's involved in it. And we discuss, we select or input when the next time we assess it will be.
So we are using a new process for submitting these now. You'll remember in the past, or maybe you're new to this, and so this is all new to you. But in the past, we have used Nuventiv to do this. And we're moving away from Nuventiv for various reasons. First and foremost, because our contract is expiring this fall. So we're trying to come up with another method for collecting and distributing and keeping up with these reports. So we are going to use Microsoft Teams for this. And I'm going to pull up the Teams in just a moment and show you exactly how we're going to do that. But that's where we're going to collect these and have them available for you to access. And then we will be using a Microsoft Word template, similar to what you used to submit your IE plan for this upcoming cycle. I do want to note, because I think there was a little bit of confusion in the emails, because we have two different things going on right now. This results report is for our current IE cycle. So this one that is the 2021 to 22 IE cycle. What you submitted a plan for a few weeks ago is for the next cycle. So this is separate from that. I did just want to make sure that we said that. We'll talk more about those other plans at a later date. For now, we're just focusing on the results reports for this current cycle. So before you write your results report, you'll want to access the IE plan that was submitted for this current cycle in Microsoft Teams. We are in the process of collecting those from Nuventiv and putting them into Teams, and I'll show you where you can access that. We will give you all access to Teams, and you'll have, if you're over multiple units, you'll be able to see all of those plans there within the Teams. And that's where we're going to keep everything moving forward. So we'll have it divided up based on IE plan cycle, and that's where you can go to get your past plans, to look at your results reports, all of those things. We'll also have those templates that we're talking about that I'm about to show you. We'll have those on our website, but we'll also have them available within the Teams as well. So you can download a copy of it there and keep it that way. I do want to say, make sure that you are using the appropriate template based on your unit type. We define those the way that SAC-COC defines them. So we have administrative units and academic and student support services units, and they have different requirements. So if you're purely an administrative unit, that means that you are only going to have administrative unit outcomes. You will not have student learning outcomes. If you're an academic and student support services unit, you can have both. or either or. You could have a combination thereof. So make sure that when you download this template, you're using the appropriate one. And if you have a question about where your unit falls, we do have a list of those within the teams as well. So you can look at that to see where your unit is, or you can always reach out to me and I'll be happy to provide that information. We're asking that you submit your results reports in Microsoft Teams by August 1st, 2022. So you have quite a bit of time to work on this, and we'll send you updates and reminders along the way to make sure that you're on track with that. All right, let me check the chat here. It looks like we might have a question. David, you would be academic and student support services units.
Even though I'm not an academic unit, I still fall under academic.
Yes, so everybody in student affairs falls under academic and student support services. You're under the student support services part rather than the academic. But yes, that's where you fall.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I do want to stop there for just a moment, and I'm going to share the report. But before I do that, does anyone have any questions before we get into looking at the actual template itself?
Hey, Alex, David again. I have to go to a staff meeting here in a minute, and I saw somewhere where this will be posted so I can see the recording.
Yes.
Where will it be posted?
So we'll post it on our website. I'll send an email to everybody letting them know when that's available.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, David.
This is Jacinda.
Yes, ma'am.
Where can I find the IEs from last year? I'm not sure if I assume my predecessor did that before she left. So where would I find that?
So we'll put the IE plans that are available in Teams. I'll show you where those will be housed in just a moment. They're in Nuventive, and we're going to take them out of Nuventive and put them in Teams, just so you don't have to go to multiple places to find them. So we'll have that available for you. Any other questions before we get into the process? All right. Well, I am going to share, and please feel free if you have a question, you can raise your hand on here or drop it in the chat. We'll make sure to monitor that as we're going. So I am now going to show you an example of this completed template. So this is what it's going to look like. If you submitted a plan for the upcoming cycle, this should look familiar to you. It's a similar template to what we did there. You'll want to make sure up here in the header, make sure that you're using the correct one for your unit type. Again, this one is for administrative units. The one for academic and student support services units it has a bit more stuff in it just because of the dual nature of some of those outcomes. Since those units can submit either an SLO or an AUO, that may look a little different. So for now, we're just going to look at the administrative units. Oh, thank you, Amanda. Amanda just dropped that unit type spreadsheet in there if you'd like to look at that. So here you'll see the instructions for how to first access your IE plan for this current cycle. I know it looks a little complicated, but I wanted to make it as foolproof as possible. I know that not everyone is as familiar with Teams. You may not have used that as much as some of us have. So I wanted to make sure that it was a good explanation for folks trying to access that. And of course, you can always reach out to me if you're having difficulty getting in, and I'll be sure to help you. We haven't added anybody yet. So if you're trying to get it right now, you won't be able to, but we'll get everybody added in there within the next few weeks. So once you get in there, you'll be able to access that previous plan, and then you can use that. You can just download a copy of that and use it to fill out this information. So everywhere that you see a shaded box, that is a spot that you will need to provide information. So you'll see here, you just fill in your unit name, your assessment coordinator and email address, and then your mission statement. If you don't have a mission statement, you can just put there, this is being developed, or we don't have one, or whatever the case may be. And then here you will do your results for administrative unit outcome 1. So you can find this information here about the outcome and the assessment method from your plan that you access in Teams as well. So you can just copy and paste that directly in here. These are drop-down menus, as you can see, so you can just select which one you fall into there. This is a drop-down menu as well. And then you get into the actual meat of the results report. So this is going to ask you, was it met, not met, or partially met, which we discussed earlier, and you just select which one. And then you fill in the summary and the reflective analysis. And it's pretty straightforward. What I like about this is that it takes everything that was in Nuventive and puts it all in one place. So rather than having to save out of one screen and going into another, it's all right there spelled out for you. So I think it's much more intuitive than Nuventive was. Nothing against Nuventive, but and so you'll do that for AUOs. You only have to provide results on one assessment measure. For SLOs, we ask for 2. That's why the form for academic and student support services units is a bit longer, because it has those options for 2 measures. So again, then you get into the outcome unit 2 or outcome number 2, and you do the exact same thing. So I didn't fill this part out because I wanted to be able to show you what it will look like when you open it. So you'll see all of these shaded boxes, you know that that's a part that you need to focus on. And that's it. So that's the template itself. And let me now show you what that looks like in Teams to access that. So when you're in Teams, and I might have a lot more Teams than what you all have, or you may have a lot more than me. So over here on this left menu side, you're going to select Teams, and that will pull this screen up. And eventually, when we get you all added to it, you'll see this team right here called IE Planning. And you'll just click on that, and it will take you to the main page for that. It by default goes to the posts. You want to click right here, though, on Files. For now, we only have the 2021-22 IE planning cycle in here. Eventually, we'll have additional cycles. So you'll just click on that. And I've tried to make it as user-friendly as possible. So this is where you'll click to find your unit IE plans for this current cycle. So you can click right on that. We will be in the non-degree units here. And eventually we will have this populated with everyone's plan. And you'll see the naming convention. They'll all be named like this. So for now, I only have our plan in here just to show you what it looks like. So you can either click on this and it'll show up here within Teams. So there's what our plan looks like. And we got these straight out of Nuventive. So you can either click on it and look at it there, or you can, oh, I went back out. Let me get back in there. Or you can click this little button here and it will allow you to download a copy. So I would recommend that you download a copy and keep a copy for yourself in your own records. So once you access that and you use it to fill out your results report, you can go back to that 2021-22 IE planning cycle folder. And right here is where you'll click to upload your results reports here. So you'll click on that and again, go to non-degree units. And we don't have any in here yet, but eventually, hopefully this will just be full. And you can just upload. So right here is the upload option and you'll just click upload and do a file and that's it. And you just submit it there and then you're done. So you don't have to email it to us. You don't have to, all you have to do is upload it there and then you're done. So, oh, and I did mention that we would have that unit list by IE planning cycle. That's available right here. When we have those templates ready, we'll add them here as well. So this is where you can access those as well as on our website. So questions, please. I know this is a new process and new can always be a little overwhelming. So we want to make sure that everyone's confident in this. So please feel free to ask any questions that you may have.
Kelly, I just wanted to add a couple of contextual things.
Of course.
Just one thing, bigger picture, if you've been at the university for a while and have participated in this process before, there's been a lot of emphasis since this version of the process started, 5 or so years ago, on the planning side, less emphasis on the results and closing the loop side, which is actually super important. But because it was sort of new in this version, we were really emphasizing the planning. So now we really need to move toward thinking about closing the loop, having documented evidence of that. So you're going to see more emphasis on the results reporting side from our office as well. The other thing I wanted to mention just regarding Nuventive is that I know some of you might use that for budget requests and reporting. I'm not sure what will happen to that piece of it yet. We are working with finance to figure out what next step would be. We probably won't have that information till over the summer. But if you're wondering about like, hey, am I still going to be using Nuventive for budget? The answer is we're not sure yet, but we and finance will keep you updated.
So any questions about completing your results report or submitting it or unit type, anything, feel free to drop it in the chat or you can just unmute and ask here. All right, I guess we were that good. I do know that once you get into this, you may have questions. So if that is the case, please reach out to me. Don't get frustrated and irritated with it. Just reach out to me. Let's set up a one-on-one time or a quick phone call, and usually we can talk through it. I don't want this to be a frustrating process for anybody. So you can reach out to me. And also Brandy can help with training for Microsoft Teams if you need that. Brandy Bickham in our office. So if you're not super familiar with Teams, she can help you with that, or I can as well. And like I said, we'll let you all know when we get you added to that team so that you can start accessing those plans and working on that. And of course, you can still access those within Nuventive as well. If you are just really raring to go, you can always get into Nuventive to get that. And yes, thank you, Amanda. One last reminder, they are due by August 1st. So I know it seems like right now we have plenty of time, but with the way things have been going, that'll be here before we know it. All right, well, if there aren't any questions, thank you again so much for coming this morning. We'll let you know when this recording is available, and please reach out if you have any questions.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.